Hi, everyone. This is Mara Carroll. I'm the Development Officer here at JEP Foundation. Thank you all for joining our community webinar series today with Astellas Pharma. We are going to get started in just another minute or two. We have quite a few people logging on with us this afternoon. So we'll be right back in just about 30 seconds. Thanks. Hi again, everyone. This is Mara Carroll. I'm the Development Officer here at JEP Foundation. Thank you all so much for joining our community webinar series. Today, we're excited to have Astellas Pharma with us to talk about their ASP0367 clinical trial program in Duchenne. So we're very excited to have them join us. Before we get started, I did just want to mention a few things. If this is your first webinar series, we do offer these several times a month. I believe this is our 20th webinar this year with over 500 registered participants. We do miss seeing you all in person at our workshops, but we know that these webinars are very accessible and convenient for our community, and grateful for our partners like Astellas Pharma that brings these webinars right into our families' homes. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this webinar is being recorded. So if you have to log off, or if you're like me in New England and might lose power any minute, this will be recorded and in our library of resources on our website that you could watch later. We also have a question box in your panel right there. So if you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to drop them into the questions box. The webinar today, the presentation should take about 20 minutes or so. And afterwards, we will be answering questions. Okay, one thing I did want to mention, I know we have a lot of parents and families on our webinar today. JEP Foundation has an ambassador program, so we have moms, dads, grandparents across the country in 20 different states. So if you are interested in connecting with one of our ambassadors, please go to our website, jepfoundation.org, and we can connect you with them. And our ambassadors also do run parent support groups that are happening every other Monday evening, and you can find more about that on our website. So without any further ado, again, excited to have Astellas Pharma with us today, and Dr. Tran will be giving the presentation. She's the Senior Medical Director and Global Medical Lead at Astellas Pharma. And I think that's all from me, so take it away, Dr. Tran.
Thanks so much, Mara. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone at the JEP Foundation for the opportunity to be here, and all for the parents and families for joining. We're very excited to be a part of this community and give an update on the ASP0367 program. Okay, let's try to navigate this a little bit here. So for disclosures, ASP0367 is previously known as MA0211, was developed by a company called Mitochondria, which was acquired by Astellas in 2017. ASP0367 is an investigational drug, and it's not available for use outside of the investigation. The safety and efficacy of ASP0367 has not been established. There's no guarantee that the molecule will receive regulatory approval or become commercially available for uses being investigated. And it is not authorized for sale in any jurisdiction. So now we'll give a little overview about our product and why it's important. So mitochondria are important parts of the muscle cell, and they make up the energy that the cells need to function and survive. In Duchenne muscular dystrophy, the loss of dystrophin makes mitochondrial function impaired. So ASP0367 is an investigational drug, meaning that it's being tested to find out if it improves certain symptoms in Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So it may act inside the muscle cells to increase the mitochondria's ability to make energy, and in turn can possibly improve muscle health and function. It is taken by mouth, and it may be given in combination with certain approved therapies, such as exon skipping treatments and also corticosteroids. A phase 1b clinical trial is now open in the United States, and we'll show you some of the open sites later on. Additionally, there are a couple other sites that will open soon as well. So for further information, to search for if there's a site close to you, there is a website listed here below, clinicaltrials.astellas.com, and you can enter in this clinical study number or enter in DMD or Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Alternatively, we are also listed on clinicaltrials.gov, which is another good way to search for our study. So a little bit about Astellas Pharma. It is a top 25 global pharmaceutical company, and our corporate vision is really to be on the forefront of healthcare and really to turn innovative science into value for patients. It was formed in 2005 with the merger of Yamanouchi and Fujisawa pharmaceutical companies, which were headquartered in Tokyo, Japan, and we have locations worldwide, including a North America location, our headquarters in Northbrook, Illinois. It has a really broad pipeline, and we're primarily focused on areas of oncology, urology, nephrology, and immunology, areas of high unmet need. However, we are growing our expertise in emerging areas of discovery research. And we've really taken this conscious company shift to focus areas approaches, and that includes regenerative medicines, muscle diseases such as Duchenne's, and neuroscience. And we really take a science-first approach, focusing on the best science, searching for the best talent to pursue it, and developing it in the best locations. In terms of employees, we have more than 16,000 employees worldwide, and a large commitment to research and development, with approximately 1.88 billion reinvested back into research and development. Okay, now I'm going to give a little introduction into the mitochondria and why it's important. So this figure here looks at skeletal muscle fibers, and in the middle you see these orange jelly bean shaped items, and these are mitochondria. So they are small parts of your cells, and they turn the food that you eat into energy that's necessary to survive and do work. And as you are well aware, dystrophin is a protein inside your muscle that works with other proteins to keep the muscle strong and protect them from getting injured. So when the muscle cells don't have dystrophin, over time they get damaged, which can weaken the mitochondria. And so when the mitochondria is damaged or weakened, they can't use fatty acids or sources of energy properly. And so when that happens, the muscles can get tired easily, can't repair from injuries, and over time from using them, they can get sore and fatigued, which explains many of the symptoms of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So ASP0367 is a molecule under investigation that may improve how energy works in muscles. So it's currently investigated to determine whether it can switch on cells that regulate mitochondrial function to help with this pathway. So this PPAR delta pathway regulates mitochondria by turning on different genes in the cell. So the body sends a signal when they receive ASP0367, and the PPAR delta pathway is turned on. The cell transcribes certain genes and really activates the mitochondria to use the fatty acids more and more efficiently. which is hopeful that it will improve the muscle health and function. And because of this unique mechanism of action, ASP0367 can be used with other therapies such as exon skipping therapies and or corticosteroids. So this is an example of why it can work with other treatments. So up here, this top arrow is the mechanism of action of how certain drugs such as exon skipping therapy works. So it works higher upstream at the DNA or RNA level where things are mutated above missing or abnormal distributed protein. So the PPAR delta pathway occurs downstream of that mutation. And the concept is that, it can be used with the therapy as well because it has a different mechanism of action and does not interfere with any of those therapies that target DNA or RNA. Okay, now I'm going to give an update on the clinical study for ASP0367 in pediatric male participants with DMD. So we have an ongoing phase 1B clinical trial. It is a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. And the primary purpose is to evaluate the safety and tolerability of the study drug and really evaluate how the body processes the drug and how the drug affects function. And one of the functional assessments is a cycling test that the patient undergoes using his arms, and I'll show you a picture of that later on in this presentation. So again, clinical trial sites are open only in the United States, and we previously discussed how to look for some of those sites with entering keywords on either the Astellas clinical trial website or on clinicaltrials.gov. Here is a brief synopsis of the study schedule. So there is a visit that occurs to screen to make sure that the patient meets the inclusion criteria and none of the exclusion criteria. So there's a 4-week screening window before the patient actually starts on either the active drug, the ASP0367, or placebo. The patient will be randomized. And this first 2 weeks, if the patient is randomized to the active arm, it's a 2-week of low dose followed by 10 weeks of high dose therapy. So this is a 12-week portion here, and it's a 12 weeks. If the patient is randomized to a placebo arm, it is 12 weeks continuing on the placebo arm until everybody gets switched over or continues on the active ASP3067 arm, where patients will receive the 2 weeks of low dose and then switch to 10 weeks of high dose therapy. And then there will be a 4-week follow-up assessment. So the total time of being in the study is approximately 8 months. And please note there are visits during this time. So 1 visit for screening, 6 visits during the randomized portion, and then what we call an open label where everybody receives the same drug, 6 visits here, and then 2 visits during the follow-up portion. So some of these visits will be done at the study site, and then depending on the study site, some can be done in the home as well. Right, let me move on. And then in terms of who can participate in the study, so boys who are 8 to 16 years old, have a diagnosis of DMD, have been taking stable doses of corticosteroids for 6 months. And then we do want to target patients who've had some difficulty walking quickly on their 10-meter walk test, and then with some difficulty in terms of their physical function, but will need to be able to have able to lift their arms to at least the shoulder height level. And this is primarily because they will need to undergo this cycling test that I'll show you in a little bit. In terms of who is excluded from this study, so patients who've had any acute recent serious infection, a mental health condition or behavioral problem that the investigator assesses as not necessarily a good candidate for this study, or who may not be healthy enough for this study. patients who have severe heart problems assessed on an echocardiogram or EKG, or also on a lab test will also be excluded. And then there are certain types of drugs that if the patient has taken within 4 weeks of the study that will need to be excluded due to potential interactions. And then any history of kidney or liver problems. And then if the patient is also currently in another investigational trial, the patient will need to be excluded until completion of that trial. So there's more information on the Astellas clinical trials website, as well as on clinicaltrials.gov. All right, so we are updating the protocol. So previously, certain patients were not allowed to enroll, but we are making some updates. So if your son or a family member had previously not been able to enroll, please check back because things may have changed. So we previously excluded patients who were taking exon skipping drugs, but now they will be able to. And then we loosened some criteria around COVID-19. Obviously, we want the patients to stay safe during this time. However, we will allow patients to enroll if they have caregivers or vaccinated if they are at high risk for COVID-19. And then patients will be able to enroll if they can complete the 10-meter walk test. They were previously not able to. And then previously we were excluding patients who were on metformin, but they will be allowed to if they are on stable doses. Okay, so what happens during the study visits? So there are different types of tests. So tests to check general health. So the patient will have exams by the study doctor, look at the heart function, blood tests, urine tests. There's a pulmonary function test as well. And then assessments to see how the patient moves their body, including the cycling test, evaluation of how the upper limb performs. There's a 2-minute walk test, and then also tests that will be conducted at home that will be seen on video, and then also monitor activity. There will be blood and urine tests, as mentioned before, and then tests to see how the patient is feeling and thinking in the form of patient diary, surveys. There will be patient and parent interviews. There's a digital span memory test. And then there's also, for certain sites, there'll also be magnetic resonance spectroscopy study if it's available at that site to examine how the muscle structure may have changed throughout the course of the study. Okay, so the 6-minute cycling test. So this has been mentioned several times before in the study. So this is a picture of a little boy who is currently undergoing the 6-minute cycling test. And so what it is it's an outcome measure used for patients with Duchenne muscular dystrophy who are likely to not continue walking much longer or may already require a wheelchair. So to do this test, the person cranks the handles of the tabletop up here for 6 minutes, and the qualified trainer can give assistance so the handles are easier to turn, so can get the patient started. Sometimes, getting started is a tough spot, but once it gets started, patient can continue going for quite some time. And so in this study, the number of time that the patient cranks the handles with the arms will be counted for 6 minutes. So here's a current status on where our open sites are. They're in Los Angeles, Sacramento, Kansas City, Worcester, Massachusetts, Baltimore, Minneapolis, Norfolk, Virginia, and Richmond, Virginia. There are also plans to open several other sites soon, so please check back with clinical trials websites. Enrollment status, so currently we have 9 study subjects who have been screened and 5 study subjects who are randomized and enrolled in the trial. We are aiming for a total of 18 patients, so hoping to get there soon. In terms of the safety profile of the molecule, Currently, there are no serious adverse events that are reported. Treatment emergent adverse events refers to adverse events that have emerged since starting the therapy. So they have been assessed as not related to the study drug, but there are 10 events reported thus far. To learn more, again, please visit the clinicaltrials.astellas.com. This is the clinical study number listed here. And again, to search for keywords, Duchenne muscular dystrophy or DMD, and you can find out if there are new sites being added or can ask questions through there. You can also send an email to Astellas Pharma Global Development Team at astellas.registration@astellas.com. And there's also a 1-800 number that you can call and reference the study or reference DMD as well. The study number internally is 0367 CL0102. With that, I really want to thank the JET Foundation for your time and really thank everyone for joining, and I will be available to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Tran. Really appreciate it. That was a great presentation, and hopefully it answered a lot of questions that people are asking. So just a reminder, everyone, if you have any questions regarding the presentation or for Astellas Pharma, go ahead and drop them into the question box below. We are starting to get a few questions in. Few are around trial sites. You did mention where your trial sites are. This one's coming in, says, the trial sites are far from my house. Do you plan on opening any other sites? Sounds like you do, but maybe you're not sure where they are just yet.
That's correct. So we are planning to open a couple of additional sites, and we're really evaluating where those may be. I understand that many of these study sites are at large academic centers, and not all patients live by these really large urban areas. So we really try to mitigate as much as possible by working with the sites to have travel and study stipends, as well as trying to do as many home visits as possible. So, we will look into opening additional sites, so please check back in. And if there is a site that, that you belong to or you like, you can always reach out to them and ask, like, what sort of accommodations could be available to you.
Great, that's great to know. This also around travel sites. Do you offer, and you just touched on this, do you offer travel expenses to participate if we don't live close?
So yes, there are, and you would have to check with the study site that is the closest to get the more details on that. But that is typically worked out between Astellas and the university, and you would check with the university to see what those are. And if there's any discrepancies, or if there are things that that you may need additional assistance, the university would then work with Astellas to work those things out.
Great, thank you. Let's see, next question is, I know some Spanish-speaking families who might be interested. Do you have a number to speak to a translator or have Spanish materials?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So we do have Spanish material available. Our study materials have been translated into Spanish. So I think my recommendation is that that the family would look into what location or would be the best one for them or closest to them, and then we can definitely assist with connecting there. Some of the universities will have Spanish translator available.
Great. The next question, when do you expect to stop enrollment? I know you mentioned that you're looking for 18 participants in this trial. So I guess you can touch a little bit on that.
Yes, so I mean, At this point, we don't have any plans or a certain date to anticipate stopping enrollment. Typically, we in clinical trials, we would like to have at least 18 patients enrolled, in case sometimes you anticipate, patients may not continue in the study for whatever reason, if somebody moves or whatnot. So at this point in time, I can't really put a definitive date on it, but we hope to continue this study and enroll as quickly as possible. We would like for the study to complete by sometime mid next year, so that we can move on with the process and just really understand more about the safety and efficacy of this drug, to see if we can move it forward and try to help patients.
Great. The next question is, do you have an email to contact you about this trial? I think that was actually your last slide. I don't know, Gabby, if you can switch back over and maybe we could rest on their final slide that I do believe had your clinical trial website and 1-800 number. Otherwise,
Yes.
I can certainly get that information out to all attendees, after
Yes.
this webinar.
Here it is, and I can't remember if it's on the handout as well, but the email is right here, astellas.registration@astellas.com.
Great, and that's a good reminder for anyone that's joining us today. There is a handout section on your panel, GoToWebinar panel. Astellas Pharma had recently produced a community newsletter that has a lot of this information as well that you could download and have access to.
Yes, and even if you have questions and you're on clinicaltrials.gov, we do monitor the site, and I see questions very frequently coming through clinicaltrials.gov, so please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to hear from you.
Great. The next question is, if my son is on an approved therapy, can he participate in this as well? I know you did touch on that a little bit, which is kind of part of your new protocols, but maybe just kind of reiterate that a little bit.
Yes, if it's on, it depends on which approved therapy. If it's exon skipping, yes. If he meets the rest of the inclusion criteria and none of the exclusion criteria. So really, I think the best way is to look through some of those on the website, on clinicaltrials.gov or on the Astellas website. It has high level inclusion exclusion, but really to know for sure would have to reach out to the site and to go through the screening process.
Great, thank you. The next question, my son is non-ambulatory. Do you offer compassionate use or consider hosting a non-ambulatory trial?
So in terms of, I don't believe this study per se, and I think we would need to check. So this is for non-ambulatory, you do want some that are able to cycle though, so with the arms, and then so I have to look a little bit more into this protocol. In terms of compassionate use, we don't have plans for that at this time, since this is a phase 1b study looking at the early safety and tolerability. So at this time, we don't have compassionate use. Okay.
Great. Next two are, I think, just going back to a little bit of travel stipends is more of a comment that I would ask if you could consider providing 2 caregivers to travel. That traveling solo is sometimes very difficult. So that's just more of a
yeah, I understand the difficulties. I think as I mentioned before, the best thing to do would be ask the clinical trial site that question, the university, and they would share that question with us, and we would look at on a case-by-case basis.
Great.
And I did want to address the non-ambulatory question. I apologize. So yeah, we are able to enroll patients who are early non-ambulatory. So it really does depend on you know, your son's current clinical status, and really to check in with the screening criteria there.
Great, thank you. See, any other questions? This one, I live in Canada. Do I have to travel to the US to participate?
At this time, we don't have any sites open in Canada, so the answer is yes.
Okay. Okay, I think you have answered pretty much. Let me just see if I have any more coming in here. I think you have answered all of our questions. So again, if anyone listening has any more questions, please feel free to drop them into the questions box. But I would like to thank you so much, Dr. Tran, for this presentation. Certainly answered a lot of questions from our community. And again, this webinar will be recorded. So if you missed any part of the presentation, it will be up on our website in the next day or so. So I think if there are no further questions, I just would like to thank you so much, and everyone have a great afternoon. And again, if you have any questions that you think of afterwards, you can always email Jet Foundation at info@jetfoundation.org anytime to ask questions, and we'll get them back to the company. All right.
Thank you so much,
Dr. Tran.
Yeah, thank you, Jet Foundation.
Have a good
I really
afternoon.
appreciate it. Bye-bye.